In this life, many believe that words are the way to influence. They believe that the loudest voice holds the most power, that the one who speaks the most knows the most. But this is not always true. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence intensified. Silence is a form of power, not absence. In a world driven by noise, chatter, and constant expressions, silence often feels like a void to many people. They interpret quietness as weakness or lack of confidence. But this is only because they do not understand its depth. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. It is the choice to observe rather than to react. It is the art of being in control, even when everything around you demands that you lose control. When someone chooses to remain silent, especially in moments of tension, that silence speaks louder than any words possibly could. It communicates strength, stability, and inner mastery. When you are silent, you are not giving your energy away. You are not wasting it on proving, convincing, or justifying. You are conserving it. You are observing. You are collecting information. In this stillness, you are present, completely. While others rush to speak, to defend, to attack, you remain grounded. In this way, silence becomes your fortress. It becomes the space where you gather strength, and the shield that deflects meaningless confrontation. A people are uncomfortable with silence, not because it is weak, but because it is powerful. It confronts them with their own thoughts. It forces them to face themselves. Most people speak to fill silence, not realizing they are revealing far more about themselves than they intend. In contrast, when you remain silent, you reveal nothing. You hold the power of mystery. You control what is seen and what remains hidden. And in a world where information is constantly being extracted, the one who reveals less holds more. Silence also allows you to perceive the intentions of others more clearly. When you are not distracted by the need to speak, you become a better listener, not just to words, but to tone, to body language, to energy. You hear what is not being said. You see through the performance. You notice the insecurity behind the arrogance, the fear behind the anger. And because you are not responding impulsively, you are not pulled into their chaos. You remain separate. You remain in control. In negotiations, silence can tilt the balance. It creates discomfort in the other person. It forces them to fill the gap, often revealing their position, their limits, their fears. In arguments, silence denies the opponent what they seek most: your reaction. They throw words like weapons, expecting a fight, but when those weapons meet silence, they lose their force. This does not mean surrender. It means strength, because anyone can speak in anger, but only the strong can stay silent in it. Even in relationships, silence has a role. Not the kind of silence that punishes, but the kind that listens, that holds space, that allows room for understanding to grow. Many problems come not from what is said, but from what is said too quickly, too emotionally, too thoughtlessly. Silence offers a pause, and in that pause, wisdom can arise. It becomes easier to respond from clarity, rather than react from emotion. Inner silence, mental silence, is just as powerful. The ability to quiet your own thoughts, to not be ruled by the chatter of the mind, to create space between a thought and an action. That is the root of self-mastery. When you are inwardly silent, you are no longer a slave to impulse. You act with purpose, not pressure. You move with intention, not reaction. You create rather than repeat. Silence also carries a weight in presence. Some people walk into a room, and without saying a word, the atmosphere shifts. It is not because of what they say. It is because of who they are, and how still they have become within themselves. That kind of silence draws attention without effort. It demands respect without asking. Your energy enters the room before your words do. Long before you open your mouth, your presence has already made its first impression. People may not consciously realize it, but they can feel it. It's in your posture, in your breath, in the way your eyes move, or don't move. The energy you carry speaks a language older than words, and it is understood without needing to be translated. It communicates your confidence, your intentions, your clarity, and even your inner chaos. You don't need to introduce yourself when your energy already has. Some people enter a space and immediately shift the environment. Everyone becomes aware. Heads turn. Conversations pause. This doesn't happen because they are loud or flashy. It happens because they have cultivated an energy that is stable, calm, powerful. They don't need to dominate the room. They simply are, and that being is enough. Presence is felt, and presence comes from alignment. When your mind, your body, and your emotions are all working in harmony, when your thoughts are scattered, when you are anxious, insecure, or angry, even if you try to smile and appear composed, others can sense that something is off, because your words are not aligned with your energy. There is a disconnection, and human beings, whether they realize it or not, are wired to pick up on that misalignment. But when your internal world is steady, when your breathing is deep and slow, when your thoughts are not racing, then your energy communicates calm strength. And that calmness travels farther than your voice ever could. In places of pressure, your energy determines how others approach you. If you walk in with doubt, people sense that. If you walk in with desperation, people feel it. If you walk in with fear, even if unspoken, it shows in your body. But if you carry yourself with quiet certainty, with dignity, with peace, you are treated differently. Not because of your appearance, but because of what you radiate. That is the unspoken currency of influence. When you walk into any situation, you have a choice: either let the environment shape your energy, or let your energy shape the environment. Those who have trained their awareness, those who have understood the nature of energy, they choose the second. They do not react to what they walk into. They bring something with them that changes the space. They anchor themselves so deeply that external noise does not move them. That kind of inner stillness creates outer authority. People trust what they feel more than what they hear. You can say all the right things, but if your energy is inconsistent, it will be noticed. You can try to sound confident, but if you are trembling inside, others will sense it. But if your inner world is settled, if your energy is pure, balanced, and strong, then you don't have to convince anyone. Your presence will do the work for you. To develop this kind of energy is not an overnight task. It requires discipline. It requires attention to breath, to posture, to thought patterns. It requires detachment from noise and the building of inner silence. It requires you to clean your emotional field so that you don't carry past pain into new spaces. Every step you take, every room you enter, is a reflection of your internal condition. Even when you are not speaking, even when you are not trying to influence, you are already doing so. Your energy is always speaking. The only question is what is it saying? If you are unaware, it may be saying something you don't intend. But if you become conscious of it, you can choose to enter every space with purpose. You can walk into the room without saying a single word and still say everything that needs to be said. Non-reaction is a strategy, not passivity. In moments where emotions are high and tensions are rising, the most instinctive response is to react, to defend, to fight back, to prove a point. But the strongest person in the room is not the one who reacts first. It is the one who chooses when, how, or even if to respond at all. That space between stimulus and response is where self-mastery is built. When you choose non-reaction, it does not mean you are weak or indifferent. It means you are strong enough to remain centered, even in the face of chaos. Non-reaction is not the absence of feeling. It is the control of it. It is the decision to not let someone else's behavior dictate your behavior. It is the awareness that every reaction you give is energy you invest, and not every situation deserves that investment. When someone attempts to provoke you, challenge you, insult you, they are often seeking a reaction. They want your attention. They want your emotional engagement. They want to pull you into their storm. But when you remain still, when you remain neutral, their effort collapses under its own weight. Many people believe they are strong because they speak their mind instantly, because they do not let anything slide, because they always have something to say. But there is more strength in the one who holds back, not from fear, but from wisdom. Reacting can make you predictable. And when you are predictable, you can be controlled. But when you don't react, you are no longer on someone else's script. You write your own. Non-reaction doesn't mean ignoring injustice or avoiding confrontation. It means responding from clarity, not emotion. It means choosing the time, place, and method of engagement based on strategy, not impulse. It is the awareness that the first reaction is often emotional, unrefined, and clouded. By not reacting immediately, you give yourself the space to choose a response that is rooted in intention, not ego. This applies in conversations, arguments, social situations, and even in the thoughts that pass through your own mind. Sometimes the biggest battles are not with others, but with your own inner voice. A thought appears, fear, doubt, anger, and immediately you react with more thought, more resistance, more emotion. But if you can sit with that thought and choose not to react, you begin to separate yourself from it. You begin to understand that you are not every emotion you feel, and not every thought you think. Non-reaction gives you leverage. In business, in negotiation, in conflict, silence can make the other side uneasy. They may reveal more than they intend. They may expose their strategy. They may adjust themselves simply because they cannot read your position. When you do not react, you do not give them anything to work with. You maintain the element of control, not through aggression, but through presence. This strategy also protects your peace. Every time you react emotionally, you expend mental and emotional energy. You invite stress, confusion, and instability. But when you train yourself to remain unmoved until you have clarity, you begin to conserve your strength. You begin to move with purpose rather than pressure. You no longer feel the need to respond to every comment, every insult, every challenge. You rise above it. This is a practice. It requires patience. It requires observing your own triggers, knowing what pulls you into reaction, and then gradually reclaiming that space of choice. It is not about suppression. It is about redirection. Taking the energy that would have been spent on reaction and turning it inward. Using it to build yourself rather than fight others. In this way, non-reaction becomes one of your greatest tools. Not because you avoid life's challenges, but because you face them with calm awareness and unwavering clarity. Stillness creates unpredictability and control. In a world that rewards constant movement, immediate answers, and rapid responses, stillness is often misunderstood. People see it as hesitation or weakness, but that is only because they are conditioned to chase speed over presence. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is the presence of depth. It is what allows you to see through illusion while others are caught in it. When you are still, you are not frozen. You are listening, sensing, and reading everything around you without being pulled into it. Stillness gives you the upper hand, not because it is aggressive, but because it is unreadable. Others expect reactions. They are looking for signs, tells, emotional cues. Any clue they can use to predict what you will do next. But when you remain still, you remove their ability to anticipate. You become a mystery, and that mystery becomes your strength. People cannot play a game with you if they do not know which direction you're facing. They cannot provoke or trap you if they cannot predict your next move. The unpredictable nature of stillness creates discomfort in those who rely on manipulation. When they provoke and receive no response, they lose their control. Their strategy depends on pulling you out of yourself, on making you react emotionally so they can steer the outcome. But when you remain still, internally and externally, they are forced to face themselves instead. They hear the echo of their own energy. And that reflection often becomes more unsettling than any response you could give. Stillness also allows for clarity. In the quiet space between stimulus and action, awareness expands. You begin to see the situation not just from your perspective, but from a wider lens. You notice details others miss. You begin to sense the motivations, fears, and weaknesses of those around you. While they are focused on pushing forward, you are focused on understanding. And that understanding gives you the power to influence without force. True control is not about domination. It is about direction. The one who is still, who is calm, who is centered, holds the reins. Because movement without purpose leads to chaos, while stillness aligned with awareness leads to precision. Every step becomes intentional. Every gesture carries meaning. You don't waste your energy because you have nothing to prove. You let others burn out chasing momentum, while you remain rooted, watching. This kind of control is internal first. It is the ability to remain emotionally unmoved in the face of provocation. It is the discipline to not react just because the moment is intense. It is the courage to wait, to breathe, to let the dust settle before deciding what needs to be done. When you master this, your presence alone becomes powerful. You don't need to raise your voice, assert your dominance, or explain yourself constantly. Your stillness becomes your voice. Your calmness becomes your command. Even in conflict, stillness has a role. It does not mean walking away or avoiding. It means standing your ground so firmly that the conflict cannot enter your energy field. You hold a position so anchored that nothing external can pull you off balance. That steadiness disrupts patterns. It interrupts cycles. It causes others to question their approach because the usual rules no longer apply. Stillness is trained. It is built through daily choices. Choosing patience over urgency, choosing observation over assumption, choosing breath over impulse. It requires that you understand your triggers and create distance between your emotions and your actions. Over time, this becomes second nature. You begin to trust your silence more than your words. You begin to feel more in control by doing less, but with more awareness. And in that less, there is more power than any outburst or reaction could ever hold. Listening reveals more than speaking ever could. In most interactions, people are not truly listening. They are waiting to speak. Their attention is not on understanding the other person, but on forming their own reply. In doing so, they miss the details, the tone, the subtle signals that lie beneath the surface of spoken words. True listening is not passive. It is an active discipline that requires stillness of the mind, control of the ego, and full presence in the moment. When you listen deeply, you begin to hear not just what is said, but what is hidden behind the words. People often reveal more than they intend when they speak. Their body language, their pauses, their choice of words, all become clues. A slight hesitation can signal uncertainty. A forced laugh may hide discomfort. A repeated phrase might point to an underlying fear. These are things that cannot be noticed when you are rushing to respond. But when you listen with calm awareness, you begin to hear people in a way they have never been heard before. You become a mirror, allowing them to see themselves more clearly simply by being fully present. Listening is also a way of gaining information without effort. When you are quiet and open, people will often tell you everything. They will fill the silence because it feels unfamiliar. They will open up because your stillness feels safe. This becomes a kind of soft power, one that doesn't seek control but gains influence through understanding. The more you know, the more wisely you can act. And the best way to know is not to talk, but to listen. When you listen without judgment, people reveal their true nature. They show you their values, their insecurities, their ambitions. You don't need to ask probing questions or demand answers. Just by holding space, you allow what is hidden to rise to the surface. This gives you a distinct advantage, not to manipulate, but to navigate. You are able to respond with precision because you understand the full picture. While others are guessing or reacting blindly, you are acting from insight. Listening also reveals yourself to yourself. In silence, your own thoughts rise. You begin to notice patterns. What triggers you, what calms you, what energizes or drains you. Instead of drowning your inner world with constant words and noise, you allow it to speak. And when you listen closely, you begin to separate truth from illusion. You realize which beliefs serve you and which limit you. You understand your own motivations more clearly, which allows you to live with greater intention. In conversation, listening creates space. It slows things down. It removes the pressure to be clever or dominant. You stop trying to win the moment and start focusing on connection. People sense this. They feel valued. They feel understood. And in return, they become more open, more authentic. This kind of presence cannot be faked. It only comes when you stop trying to perform and simply observe. In moments of tension, listening can diffuse conflict before it begins. Most arguments escalate because both sides are trying to be heard without listening. But when one person chooses to listen, the dynamic changes. Emotions soften, defenses lower, understanding becomes possible. Listening does not mean agreeing. It means making space for clarity, and from that clarity, wiser decisions emerge. Listening is not just an action, it is a mindset. It is the decision to value understanding over control, awareness over dominance. It trains humility, because to truly listen, you must admit you do not know everything. You must accept that every person, every situation, has something to teach. And in doing so, you open yourself to knowledge that cannot be found in your own voice. Mastery is shown by what you choose not to express. In a world that encourages constant sharing, non-stop commentary, and immediate reactions, restraint has become a rare strength. The ability to hold back, not from fear but from wisdom, is a sign of deep inner discipline. Not everything you know needs to be said. Not every opinion you have must be expressed. Not every emotion that rises must be released. The one who has mastered themselves understands that true power often lies in silence, in selectivity, in what is intentionally left unsaid. When you choose not to express something, you are not denying your voice. You are sharpening it. You are preserving your energy, your clarity, your authority. It takes little control to speak whatever comes to mind. It takes immense control to speak with intention. People often believe that expression equals authenticity, but that's only true when the expression is conscious. Unfiltered expression can become a display of inner chaos. But when expression is governed by awareness, it becomes a tool of precision, a sign of depth. Mastery is not the absence of emotion. It is the management of it. Anger may rise, but it does not have to erupt. Fear may whisper, but it does not have to guide your steps. Pride may push you to prove yourself, but you can choose to stay silent and let your presence speak. The more you learn about yourself, the more selective you become with your energy. You realize that every word you speak either builds or breaks, and so you begin to speak only when it matters, only when it serves. There is a kind of power in the individual who does not need to explain themselves, who does not rush to justify, defend, or correct others. Their calmness creates curiosity, their silence generates respect. They are not hiding, they are choosing. Choosing when to speak, when to act, and when to simply observe. This kind of restraint is not born out of insecurity, but out of confidence. It comes from knowing who you are so clearly that the opinions and noise of others no longer shake you. In conversations, you begin to notice that you don't need to have the last word. You don't need to win every exchange. You don't need to interrupt or compete for attention. Instead, you can watch how others reveal themselves through their need to fill space. You can listen deeply and speak only when the silence calls for your voice. When you do this, your words carry more weight because they are not frequent, they are not reactive, they are chosen. Holding back also gives room for clarity to arise. In the pause before expression, you are able to ask yourself, is this necessary? Is it helpful? Is it aligned with who I am? And if it is not, then you let it go. Not with suppression, but with awareness. You are not holding in to suffer. You are holding back because you have risen above the need to be understood in every moment. Your peace is not dependent on proving yourself. This practice can be applied in every area of life. In moments of conflict, when insults are thrown at you, you do not need to return them. In moments of doubt, when people question your worth, you do not need to convince them. In moments of excitement, when you are tempted to reveal plans prematurely, you hold back and let results speak. It is this restraint that sharpens your focus. It is this quiet that builds your presence. Others may not always notice what you held back, but they will feel the steadiness that comes from it. They will sense the power that is not in what you say, but in what you chose not to say. In a world that values noise, those who master silence stand apart. Winning without words is not about hiding. It is about rising above. It is about letting your stillness speak louder than arguments. Your presence carry more weight than explanations. Your energy say what your voice does not need to. True strength is not found in how loudly you respond, but in how deeply you remain rooted. Through silence, through stillness, through disciplined awareness. You gain control not just over situations, but over yourself. And in that control, you find a power that cannot be taken, shaken, or silenced.